Sometimes there's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared out in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant to last. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on. Sometimes there's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Okay.
I was trying to get my husband to join me in the good morning dance. You see, that did not work out. Welcome to episode number 12, Derek. It's number 12
1, 2, 12.
of Unfiltered. It's really hard to believe that he's like a well-renowned attorney right now. But welcome to the show. Hi, Michael Langford. Welcome to Unfiltered. I see you, Tanisha. I see you, Tish. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning to everyone who is hopping on and telling us good morning. Good morning, Christina. Welcome, Katrina. Guys, this is our Unfiltered with my husband. We call this He Said, She Said. So we're going to be talking to you guys today. I haven't been able to have him on in a while because he's been in trial after trial after trial, you know, as we get back to regular life. But today we are talking about the PPP to prison pipeline. Now, we keep it real with one another on here. You guys, if you know someone who got the PPP loan and maybe they should not have, you need to tag them and get them on this broadcast. If you know someone who got a PPP and you were like, I don't know about that, or someone asked you to get one and you were like, I don't know about that, raise your hand in the chat for me. Good morning, Conchata. I know people. Do you know people who like thriving off PPP loans right now?
I know people that have made hundreds of thousands of dollars on PPP.
Did you say hundreds of thousands?
I said hundreds of thousands.
So if you guys remember last week, we were on talking with our good friend Roseanne and Lee, right? And we're talking about how people don't want to go back to work. Maybe this PPP is why people don't want to go back to work. The PPP to prison pipeline is real. I need you guys to pay attention to everything we're going to talk about today. But first, Derek, I want to jump into it while you guys continue to like and share and invite people. We're going to get right into today's episode. There is a video clip. There's going to be a couple. Good morning, Antoine, that we want to show you today to show you what some of this stuff has been looking like. So you guys, I want you to pay attention to this and we will be like right back with you.
caught swindling millions of dollars in COVID stimulus money meant to help struggling businesses. Hello, everybody. I'm Heather Hayes.
And I'm Steve Eager. It's 9 o'clock. The U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas says Dinesh Shah, here in a 2020 mugshot for an unrelated charge, confessed to submitting 15 fraudulent loan applications for stimulus money, and that he claimed the 1,700 square foot 3-bedroom home in Coppell where he lived was the headquarters for one of his businesses that needed $2 million in stimulus loan money. Court documents say he then bought other real estate and several luxury cars. Fox 4's David Santendri is at the federal courthouse in downtown Dallas with more on this fraud investigation. David.
Yes, Steve and Heather, the SBA put up hundreds of billions of dollars in forgivable loans during the early stages of the pandemic in an effort to help small businesses pay their employees. Well, one local man admitted that he used that money, fraudulently obtained it to pay for homes and fancy cars. Fox 4 went knocking, but no one answered at the address a federal criminal complaint says Dinesh Shah lived. The 55-year-old is shown here in a 2020 Dallas County mugshot related to assault charges, but we wanted to speak with someone related to him about a $24 million COVID-19 fraud scheme he pleaded guilty to, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced Wednesday. Federal investigators previously raided his Coppell home.
And as I pulled into my driveway, I saw a lady run out the back of the house and jump in her car and take off.
Neighbor Vicki Burke saw dozens of federal agents.
And they were coming up our sidewalk with guns drawn.
She had no clue what it was about.
I saw my neighbor start to come out of her house. And I said, go back inside. And she did.
The U.S. Attorney's Office says the evidence gathered shows Shah submitted 15 fraudulent applications filed under names of various businesses he owns or controlled to 8 different lenders seeking more than $24 million in PPP loans. He claimed he had numerous employees and thousands of dollars in payroll expenses when, in fact, the criminal complaint says he didn't. Still, investigators say initially he got away with $17 million and purchased homes and luxury cars.
Okay, you guys, I've got to pause for the cause right there. It's interesting that a lot of people believe that, oh, the people who are getting caught, they're the ones who took millions and millions of dollars, right, Derek? So people are under that false impression, but we're here to kind of break y'all out of that idea today. They're not just going after the people who took millions and millions of dollars, are they, Derek?
No, they're going after all people. Now, some of the big ones may have their interest right now, but believe me, they're working their way down the list, checking it twice.
Yes, and it's important that we share this information with you all because so many of us know people who are like, oh, well, I only took $10,000. Oh, I only got $20,000. Oh, I'm not going to get caught. But there were requirements to get the PPP. So for those of you who are just joining us who don't know what PPP is, it stands for what? Paycheck protection program or payroll protection?
Payroll protection program.
Right. So keyword, payroll. Like if you don't have a payroll, you shouldn't be getting a protection check.
If you don't have employees that are on your payroll. And remember, the thing with fraud is you can always follow the money. There's always a trail. So fake docs don't have a trail. Real checks, real payroll, there's always going to be transactions and trail. So.
Okay, so here's my question though, because I did a search on YouTube because this really came to my attention because a millennial was talking to me about getting a PPP. And I was like, how do you get a PPP? Oh, they said, because I drove Uber, I can get a PPP. I said, if you don't go sit down somewhere. And they said, but you have to go look at YouTube. There's all these videos on YouTube with these people telling us how easy it is to get a PPP loan. So of course I go look on YouTube and I had to share this with y'all. Do you see all the videos? Look at this dude at the top, how to get your PPP, part 1. PPP, more money coming. This lady's telling people if you got it fraudulently, here's some options you won't like. This one right here irritated me. How to complete a $20,000 PPP grant. It's not a grant. It is a loan. You have to pay it back. There are all of these different things. This guy's talking about as a setup because apparently he know a bunch of people who got caught. This dude ain't talking about the people with millions. He's talking about the 10,000 and 20,000. And then my favorite shaky is exposing the supercent and the real BB Beauty PPP loan scam. Okay. Guys, there are tons of videos out here where some people are saying it's easy. Some people are talking about people getting arrested. People are literally on, what's the name of that site? GoFundMe?
Mhm.
GoFundMe, right here, asking, please help me pay back my PPP loans. Please help me. I received a $7,500 PPP. I have 2 daughters. I'm only 21 years old. I just needed the money for a house and food for my kids. Can you please help me pay it back? These folks are not playing. I found a Department of Justice advertisement that they are hiring attorneys across the country specifically, and I want to show this to y'all, this is not a joke, specifically to handle CARES Act fraud cases. So Derek, I want to question you today so that you can educate our viewers on some of the things related to this. So when we're looking at these, PPP cases or things like that, a lot of people think because we've gotten into this kind of climate where the government's giving away money, right?
Mhm.
Let me ask you a question. Because of all these advertisements and because we've gotten used to the government giving away money, why can't we say it's entrapment? Why isn't this inciting people? Let's talk about that side of it. Why can't I say that? Like they trapped me. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was getting away with it. Why isn't it entrapment?
Well, one, entrapment requires that you be able to argue the government is sort of induced you, got you to do something that you weren't predisposed to do. Usually you see it come up in drug cases where a drug dealer says, I was entrapped, but you sell cocaine. All they did was approach you about selling cocaine. Entrapment's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, fraud, when you applied for these, you were making representations, you were sometimes submitting documentation. No one is inducing you. No one is trying to pull you in, get you to do it, and definitely is not inducing you to submit fraudulent information.
Right. Okay. So, and that's true. It's not entrapment. And Michael Langford, we want to answer your question because you're correct. Because recently they did come out with, if you're a 1099 independent contractor, technically you're considered a business owner. And they do have a portion of it where you do not need to have employees, but there are requirements that have to be met. So I was looking at this, Derek, and I was thinking about, the fact that there are people who are on Section 8, who are maybe on some type of assistance or disability or Social Security or food stamps, who are literally, if you're getting a PPP, are you telling the government you own a business? How does that affect those benefits?
Well, there's also a thing called Medicare fraud or benefits fraud, depending on whether you're state or federal. Here's the thing. When you say something to a governmental agency, generally, if you look at the print, it clearly says under penalty of perjury or that you swear or affirm that it's true and correct. You can't get out of telling a lie because you just didn't know. For example, people lie all the time to get a mortgage. Guess what? Mortgage fraud. If you lie to get this loan, act like you have employees, act like you're a 1099 with business expenses that you really don't have. It is fraud, period.
So here's the question. Will this affect your immigration? Let's just say you're not a citizen yet and you do this. Will it affect your immigration status?
And again, let me qualify. I don't specialize in immigration. However, generally when you're in the federal world, you're dealing with felonies. Any felony or even an aggravated felony in the quote federal world, aggravated felonies can be misdemeanors in state court prosecutions, but still be considered an aggravated felony for immigration and get you deported. Moreover, sometimes they come up years later. So the point is, doing this kind of stuff can get you deported quite quickly. Right.
So there is this thought process out there. And I'm saying this, and this is important because if you guys have friends who are doing this, if you guys, thank you, Michael, you can't do EBT and PPP. I'm still in that. you can't do both. Because there's a woman who was talking about the fraud recently, Derek, and she's a tax advisor. And she was like, how do you have $200,000 in PPP, but there's no Schedule C? If you're a business owner, you know that there's a Schedule C on your taxes. Like the things are not lining up, and the governments are doing a coordinated effort right now, right?
Well, how hard is it for the government to say, oh, let's look at your tax return? Let's look at when this business was incorporated. What other taxes? Do you actually have bank accounts? Do you actually have transactions? When you think about this kind of documentation, you either have it or you don't. As soon as someone looks and pierces the fake docs, you are now on the hook. You are guilty of the fraud of getting the loan, but also, folks, even if you didn't lie to get the loan, if you spend the money on something you're not supposed to, because remember, it's regulated, restricted. You go buy that Escalade, go get, that Porsche.
Them jet skis are not a business expense.
That's not a business expense. I highly suggest if you do get that loan, document. Make sure you're paying for your payroll and business expenses, your lease and rent payments, all the things that a business would do in hard times with this money.
Right. So one of the key benefits of PPP was supposed to be the forgiveness, but you can't get the loan forgiven if you don't use it correctly, like Derek just said. But there's a lot of people who are getting it who have no intention on paying it back, which increases your chances of getting caught. And for those of you who still, do they still make Escalades? I don't know, Michael. Okay, so and those people who still think that, that they're just going after the big guys, I'm telling you, tell your cousins, tell your friends, tell your family members, and talk to your kids. Because it's a lot of millennials who are out there trying to get these PPPs because they're seeing the unemployment fraud and ain't nobody getting caught. They're seeing ain't nobody working. They're seeing all this stuff. So it's important that we know. So there's another clip that I want to share with you guys from Florida. And I need y'all to pay close attention to this one.
The business collected a $150 application fee to submit a CARES Act application on behalf of the client. They would then take 20% of the funds as payment once the funds were released by the county. During interviews, several clients told detectives they were never asked for financial information about their business until after the application had been submitted. When presented copies of 2019 profit and loss statements that SRQ Financial Solutions submitted on their behalf, several clients admitted the numbers were false. Some told detectives their businesses were not even operational in 2019. The fabrication of the financial statements was done entirely by employees at SRQ Financial Solutions. It should be noted that none of the individuals who sought services from SRQ Financial Solutions provided fraudulent information or helped in the scheme, with the exception of the 4 people you see at the bottom row of this poster. Willie Rhodes, Shanice Rhodes, Shaquaya Cooper, and Eddie Yarn. As of this morning, we took the last 2 remaining individuals, Willie Rhodes, into custody in Hillsborough County, and Shaquaya Cooper was apprehended about an hour ago, hiding under a bed in Manatee County. So all 8 of these individuals are currently in custody.
Now, pay attention. We're not just talking about the people who went out there and got Lamborghinis. But what I thought was amazing about this, Derek, to be honest with you, was they just said that the people who were running the establishment, they just got their names and their social security numbers and decided to file all the false information for them. So they are being held accountable as well. Why isn't that part of an entrapment or enticement? They just said, hey, bring your information and we do the rest.
Because one, entrapment means you have to be acting with a government actor. When you're just acting with another criminal co-conspirator, that's not entrapment. You can't be entrapped by someone you're conspiring with.
Right.
Now, one of the things to understand about fraud, for those that are smart in the fraud game, they understand you can't be on the front line of the fraud. You have to step away from it. When you go in the bank with a bad check, you're not the one to bust the check. You're the printer that gives it to the manager, who gives it to the person that's going to go in and doop-de-doop, bust the check. Well, that person's going to be arrested. The check's going to bounce. It's coming in their account. Y'all probably all know people that said, I put in a check in my account for my friend so-and-so, and then it bounced, and then so-and-so, I couldn't get hold of them anymore. But now the bank's saying I owe them $3,000. But I got $500 of it that he offered me, and that other 2,500, he's off and gone.
Right.
That's what the smart fraud folks understand. You have to be at arm's length so no one can really touch you on the front line of the fraud. What this was just talking about, they're submitting all these fraudulent documents to get the loan. The person, and then taking 20%. So let's say it's a $100,000 loan, they're getting $20,000 and
as a consultant.
they gone. Now, unless somehow you can get where they made the mistake of being on the front line, or you connected to it somehow, they're in the wind. They're gone. They probably got it by cash or money order or some other form where, again, they're gone. Kaiser Sose, they gone.
Okay, so let's talk about the consequences.
Okay.
I've been looking at some of the stuff because they're looking at this on the state level,
Mhm.
but they're also looking at this on the federal level. And I've been seeing words like wire fraud, bank fraud, false statements to a financial institution, conspiracy to commit fraud. Talk to everyone about just what kind of sentences are we looking at with this?
When the feds are coming at you, it's never a good thing. Everything you do triggers a particular statute. Let's say you're using the phone or you're using mail to help facilitate sending fraudulent documents or communicating fraudulent information. Wire fraud, mail fraud. You also, once you get the money, if all of a sudden you're tucking it away and trying to disappear it, money laundering. But just fraud in general, understand things people don't often understand about federal prosecutions. It's not just the money you got, it's the money you tried to get.
Yes.
And if you are part of a spoke of a whole conspiracy, you might be on the hook for everything that was reasonably foreseeable for being in that wheel, in that conspiracy. So you might have said, hey, I only got 5,000, but you're on the hook for 50, or you're on the hook for 100 or 200. And the more that number goes up, let's say you try to get that $1 million loan. Okay, all of a sudden where you might start, and I'm gonna talk numbers at you, sentencing guideline, you might start as a base level 6, but now all of a sudden you have a plus 12, plus 16. So now you're at a what, 22, 24. And I'll just tell you, when you get 14 or higher on the federal guidelines, there ain't no house arrest, home confinement, probation, nothing like that. Fed time is Fed time. So fraud is a funny thing when it comes to sentencing, where all of a sudden you're like, but I'm a good person. I made one mistake, but you about to do 18 months at a federal camp.
Wow. Okay. So, and that's on the lower end, because a couple of the statutes said you could be facing up to 30 years. And some people are like, well, I'll never get 30 years. I'll probably get first offender. Talk about what first offender looks like in federal law, if at all.
In 26 years, I can't say I've had more than, in fact, I can't remember a first offender in a federal prosecution. Generally, you're talking about a low quantity marijuana kind of drug case.
Right.
But in fraud, stuff like that, And because remember, there's a thing called Rule 11 in federal prosecutions that say, it ain't like a state case. Hey, you got caught with a kilo, but we ain't gonna let you plead to a half key. No. Fed cases, you plead to what you did and what you're on the hook for. And even when you don't plead to that particular count, there's another nasty term called relevant conduct, which means even if you don't plead to all the different fraud, maybe just one transaction, all the other transactions can be held against you for sentencing purposes, so that your sentence continues to tick up, tick up, tick up. In other words, when it comes to federal prosecutions, you're often going to have to pay the piper. They don't play. They tend to be thorough. You're better being in a state prosecution than a federal, but it ain't worth this money, because let's say you got 20,000. By the time you pay me, by the time you made bond, and by the time the liberty you've lost
And restitution.
and you got to pay it back. Point is, it's a lose-lose. It ain't worth the money.
Okay, so here's one of the concerns with everyone looking at how easy it looks and no one's looking at the consequences. There's a company out there, they're called Cabbage, okay? And there's a lot of these little companies out there. So instead of going to the big banks where you have to go through the due diligence and you have to submit the documents, there are some companies like Cabbage, they let you do it all online. They don't verify any of the documentation. They submit it all and people were getting loans, pop, 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 pop. Like everybody had a farm in New York City. Nobody has a farm in New York City, but people were getting approved for loans and things that should have been obvious. And I guess the question becomes, if you have companies like that who are really kind of marketing to the people that don't want to provide the documentation or the people who don't want to do it right, and they're making all this money, why aren't they going to be held accountable? Because to me, that's the setup.
Well,
why aren't they going to be held accountable?
Well, they are a facilitator in the sense of you go in SunTrust and say, I want a mortgage to buy this house. Well, SunTrust may help facilitate, maybe they'll do the loan, or maybe they'll just put you in touch with a third party that'll help you do the loan. But when you submit your application, they may verify some of the information, but they're not directly responsible for all the information that you're submitting for you to get your loan. So the point is, there can be lots of companies like that that are out there, maybe even being paid by the government to help get these loans out there for law-abiding citizens that are giving accurate information. But if you make a misrepresentation and you submit fraudulent documents, their point is, hey, that's not our role, our job. We assume you're telling the truth. And if you don't tell the truth, you're gonna end up paying the piper when the piper comes a-calling.
Well, this is unfortunate because there are some other consequences to this that people don't pay attention to. For example, there were billions in PPP money that went to fraudulent claims. That means that there were billions not available to people who actually had businesses to run. The money kept running out. So those are consequences. It's hurt employment, people being able to hire. I just saw Katrina posting about the fact that, okay, people don't want a job. Why would I get a job? I can go get free PPP, but it's not free. The piper is coming. So if you guys know anyone who is looking at a PPP, make sure that they're eligible for it. Make sure that they have a business. Make sure they're using a reputable company and that they're not getting slick played by someone who's like, oh, we'll do everything for you. We're going to take 20% because that's our cut for doing all the work or whatever. But they really never had a business. The business was supposed to exist as of, I believe, February of 2020. So no, you can't go file your LLC this month. And you might get the PPP because it's so overwhelming that they're not checking it on the spot, but the trail is there. What advice would you have for anyone on here who knows someone who may have gotten one illegitimately or who may be in trouble for one? Because I've been getting calls from people saying, oh, my cousin got a loan and the police were at their house, or this person got a loan and they have a business, but they filled out the app wrong, so they're getting arrested. Those things are not going to be televised. You're going to see the big people, but understand, Lil Ray Ray, Pookie, James, and Bob Billy are going to jail.
One, if they come. And if you notice, when you saw that first gentleman, looked like he had just woken up in bed. When the feds come, they tend to come in the break of dawn early and get you when you're in your jammies. So when they come, don't try to talk your way out of anything. Be quiet, ask for a lawyer, because you're not going to talk yourself out of being arrested. One. Two, to try to avoid being arrested, if you think you're involved in a loan that was a sham and has some issues, don't spend the money. This ain't the time to say, well, hey, I might as well go all in and make sure I use it all. No, you hold as much of that money as you can. Three, document what you're using the money for. Use it for the right reasons. The more you do that, the easier it'll be to say, hey, I may have fibbed a little bit, fudged a little bit to get the loan, but I've used it the way you wanted me to use it.
Right.
Okay. It's not an excuse to say, hey, I needed to feed my kids, or, my car had broken down, so I needed to get that new Hyundai. No, those aren't legitimate
Baby, they ain't
reasons.
getting Hyundais, honey. They getting Hyundais. They getting Lamborghinis.
I'm talking about not the high end. I'm talking about that person that got 15 grand, 20 grand that
They on the beach.
they thought it made a world of difference. Because here's the truth too. The same mentality that puts themselves in a situation that they're willing to participate in this kind of fraud is going to generally blow through the money and not use it in a way that lifts them or directs them towards success. Basically, that consumer kind of mentality of just spend, they're not going to invest it in crypto. They're not going to pay off their debts. They're going to just blow right through it because that's the mentality which made them ripe for the taking.
Amen.
So don't be that sucker, because when someone says, I'll help you get a loan and I'm going to charge you 20%, the minute you hear that in any context, you should say, not me, thank you, but no thank you, because something ain't right.
Is Bank of America charging that?
No banks, no legitimate business that is set up to help facilitate getting these loans are charging you a percentage of the loan itself, period.
I mean, because they're allowed to, but the big banks are not doing it.
I mean, the idea, and think about it, 20%. I mean, that's like a VIG. That's a Goodfellas kind of percentage.
And that's a good question, Michael Langford. He's asking if the money that never got to the people, once the government gets the money back, do they then put it back into the thing? But here's the thing, if they get the money back, depending on how much the person took, they could be in jail for a long time. And then this program deadline has already ended. But more importantly, they're gonna be on a payment plan.
Well, even if the money gets back, that doesn't cure the criminal act. Remember, the criminal act occurs is the minute you apply and you seek the money based on misrepresentation. So yeah, it'll be helpful, don't get me wrong, to be able to say, hey, here's your money back, so sorry. But that doesn't all of a sudden say, hey, I get to just walk away and I don't have nothing to worry about, no cares in the world. So the point is, maybe the government's going to reallocate that money. That's beyond our purview. We don't know. But if for some reason, again, you got a loan and you have reason to think it was shady, I would hold on to that money, possibly send it back. But that will be helpful to you, but it does not give you a full exoneration.
Derek, why don't you give the callers your office number? Because in case y'all know somebody who needs an attorney.
1-800-DARK-NIGHT. No.
Okay.
678-710-8395.
And I'm going to post that for everyone. And say it one more time, 678.
678-710.
How about our number lock it? That's why it's not working. Yeah, you see, I don't know his office number. We're only married. 678
710 8395.
8395.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the main office number.
Okay, got you. So guys, we're going to post this number, but we're not done yet because we have to do our Be Blessed segment. So those of you who just hopped off, y'all might have missed it, but every single week, guys, we are committed here on Unfiltered to giving away cold hard cash, not in the form of a PPP. It's not, it's not going to be, you have to pay it back. We're just giving it. So that being the case, you guys know how we do. We have several different sponsors today. Thank you to Rutha. Thank you to Katrina. Thank you to my husband. How much are you giving today? I love putting him on the spot.
I was gonna say, I got a Range Rover payment.
You sure do.
Okay.
So what are you contributing to Unfiltered today? You want to throw in an extra 50 or something?
I'll put a Ben Franklin on the table.
All right. He's going to throw in a Ben Franklin on top of what we already have for today. So that means today, drum roll, please. We are giving away $300 on Unfiltered. So thank you so much to Friends of Unfiltered. Thank you, Ruth Osilian-Similian. Thank you to Katrina. Thank you to my husband, Derek. And you guys know how we do. We are going to be putting those numbers 1 through 100 in the chat. I'm going to start the timer, which is going to be for 1 minute and 1 minute only. And we already have the number written down. So you guys, 1 through 100, we're giving away triple bins. Triple bins.
3 bennies.
3 bennies. All right, here we go.
Sometimes there's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. We're moving on. We're moving on. We're moving on.
Oh, wow. Okay, you guys caught us freaking through the thing to see who the winner is. Okay, guys, we have one person who's closest to that number today. Do you see anyone else who's close to that number?
No, I do not.
Welcome to Broadcast Window. We're happy to have you. Because that's the closest. Okay, so what was today's number that we're going to look at?
40.
And the closest person is Christina Colwood. So Christina Colwood, you are the winner. So congratulations. Here we go. Send an email to beblessed@dcwright.com. You'll see it on there. Send that email over to beblessed@dcwright.com. And I will need your people sign. I will also need how to pay you. Either Apple Pay, Cash App, or Google Pay. Either of the two is fine. So we're excited for you guys. Thank you so much for showing up for today's unfiltered session. And we will see you guys. We're talking about Derek, but I'll see you next week. Whatever we're talking about next week. And you know how we end every single show. Until next time, be blessed. And